Nothing happens around here without me knowing about it.
Yeah, we'll fix these damn mics.
You guys got to turn it on.
Oh, yeah.
Talk sexy to it.
They left their yoga mat.
That's mine,
How many of you guys were here yesterday? Everybody. Well, you didn't need everybody, right?
Well, yes, but just wanted to be in the here.
Did you get back in costume?
I did. You know, I saw a couple of people doing it, and I thought, for shits and giggles, I don't get to dress up very often. The final part of me's gone now, so I don't get to put a uniform anymore. You want that? It's on a field trip, people. This is a fucking war. That was fun last night. Who was at the after show last night? Yeah? How good was that? We had a lot of fun, didn't we? Thank you. Day of the Dead panel, Mr. Tom Savini, Taso, Stavrakis. So yesterday, obviously, we took you back to the mines, and today we're going to take you back to mine. Although I think I'm going to start with not feeding back. The Florida part of the shoot. I remember seeing some lobby cards with a woman in a wedding dress in the front of a shop with snakes all around her. But I don't believe it makes it into the movie. Do we ever know why it didn't? Because it looked really cool, lobby card, when I saw it. So what's your memories of that?
It was in the movie, wasn't it?
No, don't think it
You remember
was.
the alligator?
The alligator's in there.
His mouth was taped shut with the same color tape as his skin. Because he was around people. They didn't want him snapping at anybody, you know.
Because George wasn't there directing the Florida section of the movie. I believe it was John Harrison was
They
there.
were directed by George's house.
It was George.
In Sanibel and Captiva.
We stayed at George's house, remember?
I thought it was George Harrison. You learn something new every day. But with the Florida section, I heard a story about when Dr. Tongue was ready to have that part done. Was George on the phone and someone said, get in here, because the sun's coming down, this is just the right moment?
Well,
Golden hour.
It wasn't the right moment at all. Because, yeah, it was golden hour, the sun was going down, and Dr. Tongue was in shade. And we were scurrying to find something to reflect the light into his face. There's a very brief moment in the movie where you can see the tongue hanging out. But mostly he's in silhouette.
Because I think you talked about lighting yesterday, you sort of, where you could, because of the silhouette, you wanted to be able to see the more detail.
Exactly. I mean, we put a lot of work behind that. That was me. That was a body cast of me that we created Dr. Tongue out of. And it was 4:30. You know, we were anxious to get to Disney World. You know, so the shoot was over, so we were like a half a mile away. You know? No, we were like 15 minutes away. More than that, yeah.
Taso, you said yesterday regarding how many zombies you played in Dawn of the Dead, and you said your brother counted 14 characters. What about in Day of the Dead? Do you know how many?
I never thought about it, never counted them.
There's quite a few, isn't it? Obviously, got the zombie that when when Joe Pilato gets ripped apart, that's you.
That's me, yeah.
He's the guy in the
The
helmet.
motorcycle helmet zombie appeared a couple of times. I'm the guy that falls off the elevator
Yeah.
when the crowd is coming down. And it was nice because I had a helmet on. And I put pads under that costume.
And you're also the zombie that gets knocked over by the golf cart. Because that's where Tom was talking about the feet going
He gets dragged by the golf cart.
And the scariest one was letting Gary Clark tackle me when he's running for his life.
Yeah.
He just bats the zombie out of the way. That's me. And I was fucking terrified.
He's an ex-American football player.
An ex-football player. He said, "This is gonna hurt. Are you ready?" And I said, "No." And I went back and I put more pads on. I put every pad I had, knee pads or everything underneath my chest, and I gaffer taped myself. And I said, "Okay, I'm ready." And he came running and just did that like I was a fly, and then just disappeared. And he caved my chest in, and when George said, "Can we do it again?" I said,
Did you get particularly injured on the Day of the Dead shoot? You know, did you pick up any injuries? Because when you see some of these stunts, it amazes me that you don't hurt yourselves more often than you do.
You plan ahead, try to plan ahead, so to avoid.
Padding.
Well, safety is the utmost importance
Yeah.
when you're doing stuff like that.
Harold, I remember you telling me a story about you going to New York to see Day of the Dead as somebody just going into the cinema and watching it, and your experiences at the cinema.
Yeah, I was in right in Times Square. There was a big building. It was kind of an industry building, had a lot of agents, casting directors and stuff, and I had 2 auditions that day. And I had like 2.5 hours to kill between the auditions, which is always kind of a drag because I lived way uptown, and you know, what am I going to do for 2.5 hours? And I thought, my movie is playing right across the street. I think I'll go watch my movie. Well, Times Square in like 1985 was a pretty sketchy place, and a very sketchy movie theater with, I think there were a lot of people in that movie theater that didn't even care what movie was on. They were there for other reasons.
And you could smoke in the theater back then.
Oh yeah, yeah. Anyway, I sat there watching the film, and at the end of the movie, when Bub is chasing down Rhodes, they started to chant, "Bub, Bub, 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 go Bub!" You know, and I had this image of standing up and going, "I am Bub," but I didn't do that. I don't know that they would have believed me.
I know George gave a lot of freedom when you were creating some of the gags, some of the things you were doing. Did any particular one you tried to create, Tom, that didn't work, that didn't come off, that didn't go in?
They always worked. It always worked because you had take 2, take 3. You kept doing it until it worked, you know.
I mean, the bit with Joe being ripped apart is just an incredible scene. We know obviously the pig guts were absolutely disgusting because of the fridge being turned off, as we heard about yesterday. But I mean, Joe told me that he was stuck in that hole for, well, his words were, I was stuck in that hole for fucking hours.
For at least 4 hours, smelling the rotten pig intestines that we put in him. Somebody, if you weren't here yesterday, when we were in Florida for 3 weeks, somebody unplugged the refrigerator with the pig guts. And they just rotted for 3 weeks. But we had to use them. You know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. You can't go out and buy new pig intestines, you know. So but we had to use them, and the stench was unbelievable.
Can you talk about the gag as well? Because I know you said it was about a cut in the floor, and you put his body into the floor.
It was a raised floor. Joe was under it, and only his shoulders and arms stuck out, and the fake body was attached to him. And that's the body that got torn in half. But that's where all the pig intestines were, underneath his chest. So he was breathing that. He was breathing that for 4 hours. He had wax up his nose, you know, and he would grab the intestines and pull them up like he's going to eat them, and then put it here on the side.
You can clearly see it, can't you, Taso, that
Oh,
you did not want to put that in your
I
mouth.
was not going to put them in my mouth. No. But you told me they were actually, they weren't in a sack, but they were in a rubber, some sort of a container.
Well, he had a rubber chest on, so it was under that.
And so I had to get in there and tear that.
You can clearly see your hand.
Yeah, dig
Tear the stomach apart.
Was that just one take?
That's it. Oh yeah.
Because there's an incredible thing. When you watch Dawn of the Dead and you see the colour of the blood and the way that is, I think Day of the Dead, it looks really good.
Well, by then we had learned Dick Smith's blood formula. Well, Taso and I were on our way to do Friday the 13th, Part 1. And we stopped at Dick Smith's house, and he gave us his blood formula. Because the blood in Dawn of the Dead is ridiculous. It looked like strawberry Kool-Aid. It looked great in the bottle, but the lighting just made it look like melted crayons or something, you know. But once we got Dick Smith's formula, that was the difference. Day of the Dead was Dick Smith's blood formula. It began with Friday the 13th.
Was he very easy to approach, and was he okay about talking to us? There's no problems at all with that.
Yeah, well, you know.
Invited us to his house. Little house in Larchmont.
Yeah. But he's the only one that shared his secrets. Because when I was trying to learn, you couldn't. nobody shared their secrets. No one's going to tell you how they
A
did
magic
stuff.
trick.
Yeah, but Dick, you call him on the phone. The first time I called him on the phone, I couldn't talk. I was so nervous. And he said, calm down, calm down. Next time you call me, why don't you write your questions down? And, and then 2 hours later, he's still talking to me about how to do stuff. I think he told me the blood formula over the phone, But then he would
He had
Xerox.
it. It was Xerox in a plastic
And
sheet,
send
the
it
exact
to you.
formula.
Yeah.
Here it is, the 1 drop of green. If you
Well-
do 2 drops, it'll turn brown.
Yeah.
Did you pick up anything else? Did he just talk about the...
Well, listen. All special makeup effects were invented by Dick Smith.
Right.
He invented it all. He's the scientist behind everything we do.
Walked in the door, the first thing he did was give me Reagan's head from The Exorcist. Around. There is, I'm holding it in my hand,
Yeah.
shaking, trying not to drop it, looking at her, and she might as well have been human. There you can see the veins in her face under the skin. That's the kind of detail he did. And then he took the top of her head off.
You
And
saw the mechanisms.
He said, I realized back then that when a human spins, you track, your eyes track. He said that was the problem. The dummies, were just dead and their eyes didn't do
No, but
it.
her eyes.
So he put glass eyes in her head with a he made this metal mechanism with a radio-controlled airplane unit, so that when the head spins around, her eyes are tracking like that,
Yeah.
that. He's doing that by hand.
Well,
That's
somebody-
the kind of stuff he did. Gluing hairs on. He glued
One hair at a
hairs on.
time, one
One
hair at a
hair at a time.
Which would have taken hours.
Well, somebody today asked me if Dick went through any problems with making movies, and he had a lot of problems on The Exorcist. But The Godfather, Francis Ford Coppola, kept complaining about the color of the blood. So Dick cut his finger open and squeezed a bunch of blood out and said, hey, Francis, how about this? Oh, that looks so fake. Francis, that's my own fucking blood.
We talked a little bit about performance from Bob yesterday. Talked about there were a couple of 3 sections. One was about at the beginning of the movie where you scare Laurie. It's the first time we see Bob, and then he tries to talk. And the other 2 other occasions was when he finds Logan that is dead and tries to sort of, your reaction. And the third one was, bollocks, the Alzheimer's and dementia's kicking in, was the Richard Liberty thing where you were trying to do with your finger, where you were trying to slow down. My question is, was there any point when you've looked back on the movie, as fans we watch the movie a lot, you probably don't watch it that often, but if you've looked back, is there any part that you would like to have had another go at? Because you said time restraints, you don't get 2-3 goes.
All of it. Right? You would like to do all of it over again.
Every once in a while, George and I would run into each other at these conventions and talk about, very, very loosely, not specifically, about doing some sort of sequel in which Bub appeared. And he was enthusiastic about it, I was enthusiastic about it, but it never really occurred. I used to kind of daydream about it. And I wish I had told George this idea. I think it might have sparked his imagination. My idea for how the movie would begin is somebody is running from zombies. And there are a lot of them closing in, and the person is running, and he finds this gigantic warehouse. And you see sort of the crumbling sign of Amazon, on the front of the warehouse. And he goes running through the warehouse, and deep inside, he comes upon what looks almost like a volcano, this big kind of shape. And the closer he gets to it's made entirely of CD boxes, little, the things that you hold CDs in. And he goes up and he looks over, and in the middle of it, Bub is sitting there with industrial headphones on, just in time to see him toss another CD box and put another one in. That's as far as I got.
I remember we did a program for the show, and you wrote that in the program for us, saying that this was the lead story after Bob, because people wanted to know what happened to Bob. So I would like to hear some questions. Well, you would like to hear some questions.
You could have been in Land of the Dead. You should have been in Land of the
Yeah,
Dead.
you could have been Big Daddy. Well, you didn't need to be Big Daddy, just be Bob. Is there any questions out in the crowd at all? Oh, we have one, Andrew.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah. Actually, Taso, I was wondering if you could share with the audience what you shared with me last night about the
not that.
the marijuana.
The PG version, the 18.
Yeah. Drinking again. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So, were you there in Florida when we did the above ground? We were in Florida, and so they did the above ground of us loading onto the elevator. Of course, it wasn't really the elevator because that was in Pittsburgh. But so they made a big fake elevator platform, and we had this big grassy field with diamond mesh fence all around. What happened to be a federal facility. It was nothing really. I think they had a big electric box. I don't know what it was, but there's the picture of me you can see on my table, taking care of my pot plants near the elevator, right? As Torres. And a fucking helicopter out of the sky, out of nowhere, stops the production. And, you know, some of us thought that that was planned. George and everybody stopped. It was the feds had been watching us, and they came down and they said, you cannot have a fucking marijuana plant on a federal facility. And Barbara Anderson had to show up with the receipts from Walmart that said it's not really marijuana. It looks like it. There was an hour-long discussion. Well, they didn't throw any of us in jail. It's not really pot. You can look at it, and somebody will tell you what the plant is, but it's not marijuana.
Well, that's where we killed Tim DeLeo, where we bit chunks out of
Up
Tim
there
DeLeo
on that thing,
on top
elevator.
of that thing, yeah.
Tim, I remember Tim attending the 2018 show, and we asked him about that really gruesome scene at the end where he gets ripped apart. And he said that it really freaked him out. He said when he literally, they said stop, you know, can't, he jumped up and was like totally freaking out. Anybody remember this?
No, Tim was freaked out by everything. He was freaked out 24 hours a day. That was nothing, you know. When we shot him from the front, his arm was tied behind him. When we shot him from behind, his arm was tied in front of him because he had no arm, you know. So, and he had no idea. I mean, I put the makeup on him, but you know, zombies were biting his chest off.
Somebody really bit him.
Oh yeah, somebody really bit him.
It was hard to tell where the prosthetic ended when somebody actually did it.
It was funny because I said to him, "You do a couple of lines on the panel," and he said, "I'm a method actor, I can't do it." He said that. I was like, "Please, just hello, is there anybody there? Anybody, just please." But no.
Lori Cardill did a part in video from Pittsburgh last night.
Yes, she did. Yes.
She wasn't, you know, having to.
Yeah. If you were not at the after show last night, Laurie kindly agreed to do a video link with all of us. So all of us doing our little reenactment, she played along, even though she wasn't very well, and it was great. It was really good. Have we got any other questions at all?
Yeah.
Introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Dylan. One of the questions I had, we talked about the sort of guts towards the end of the film, but a couple of points earlier in the film, I think with the dream sequence, the zombie that sets up, it's got sort of fallout.
Oh yeah.
Were those also real, or who was that?
It was
achieved?
always pig intestines.
Wasn't that Howard?
No, it was Mike Turson.
Mike. It was Mike.
Yeah, it was always the pig intestines. I mean, you can make rubber intestines, but nothing moves and splats and like the real thing, you know. So.
You're talking about Tim DeLeo's character when he wakes up in the dream or the other.
Happens
Mike.
twice.
It does happen
He gets,
twice.
he gets the drill in the forehead.
Yeah.
That was Mike Turson, yeah. And when we did him, when we cast his body to make the ribs and everything, we built a platform with a hole in it, so his body would sink in the hole, because we knew we were going to add to him, and it would look too much. So we dug that hole, and, you know, we did the whole makeup on him, and he says, I have to go to the bathroom. So now, and back then, there were no cell phones, but I was following him with my VHS video camera to the bathroom. I wanted to photograph him in the bathroom doing what he was going to do with this cavity in him, Okay. But the extension cord ran out to the machine just before the bathroom door, so I couldn't do it.
You say Dick Smith asked you the question about how you did Major Cooper.
That's the only thing that fooled Dick Smith. In fact, my second book, Grand Illusions, the foreword is by Dick Smith. And he made note of being fooled. Like, where's his head? The guy whose arms are raising and all he was a brain, okay? That was my poor friend, late friend, Barry Gress. Tom, can I be in the movie? Yeah, I got a part for you. His head was bent back, just like Taso's was, when Taso's head came off. But his head was bent back, and that way back, for at least 3 or 4 hours, with blood pouring up his nose. He was drowning under there. But Taso put up with the same thing when we tore his head off.
Any other questions?
Hey guys, I'm James. One of the scariest things for me, because like everyone, I've watched this film 100 times now, if not more. I think Marcus is 3,000 now.
No, it's Martin Kumsky's the one that's 3,000.
Oh, right, okay.
I've still got a wife, just about.
And I've just tried to identify exactly why the film is so scary for me. And I think what it is, the reason it's so uncanny and strange is because it's so well lit. And the gore is so
well lit. Did you
Down in the mine.
But there's a stark contrast between the hallways and the mine. And I was going to ask if it was intentional. That I would imagine it's really easy to create gore that just looks like slop. But when it's so anatomically correct, laid on a table, I was wondering if that was a creative decision that you had, or if it was...
Absolutely. I constantly preach that. I preach that to my students. You know, I was a combat photographer in Vietnam. I'm the only makeup artist that has seen the real thing. I mean, just right up close, you know. So for me, it has to be anatomically correct. Unless it has to give me the same feeling, the fake stuff has to give me the same feeling I got when I saw the real stuff, or it's not good enough, you know. So that was always an intention, to be anatomically correct. Because there's something about it. I mean, you may have never seen anything like that before, but in your mind you're going, ooh, yeah, that must be what it's like, you know. So I want that feeling, you know, to get that feeling out of you. I guess it worked, you know, but yeah. There's 2 things I learned about cadavers. I saw many of them in Vietnam. And I preached about this yesterday. And I hate when actors are in a movie portraying a dead body, and they wouldn't look good for the camera. You know, none of your muscles work, including the jaw. So the mouth is always slack. You know, it's like relaxed and open. And the eyes are always open. It takes a muscle contraction to close the eyes. So, and the blood, 24 hours, the blood turns dark brown. You know, I've seen movies and TV shows. They go to the crime scene like a day later, blood is all red. Well, that ruins it for me. You know, well, because they don't know. You know, like I said, I saw the real thing.
Any other
he
questions?
had a question right there.
Yeah, in the middle.
Hello, this is for Tom. Are there any of your effects you do differently now?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's always different. The only thing that changes is the material sometimes, you know. Back then we were using foam latex. Today it's all silicone, because you can blend the edges so much easier on silicone. A little bit of acetone, that edge is gone, you know. Back then, I kind of wish we had CGI back then, so I can hide an edge or 2, you know. The materials change, yeah.
I think fans prefer a practical effect than CGI. CGI seems to be so obvious these days. You spot it a mile off.
There's a collective dislike for CGI because you have to change your mindset. When I saw Jurassic Park, I didn't see any dinosaurs. I knew there was somebody at the computer creating them, and that pissed me off because I had to change my mindset. And most people don't want to do that, you know. But the next time, before I saw it the next time, I said, no matter what I'm seeing, foreground, background, it's going to be real. And the movie was terrific, but I had to change my mindset to see that. If you see American Werewolf in London, that happened right in front of you. If you're watching any of my effects in any movie, it's happening right in front of you. And there is a difference. They haven't mastered blood squirting. They haven't mastered car crashes. I mean, I love it when it's done well, but mostly it's not.
And you say it's the illusion, isn't it? It's the magic tricks. It's making us believe one thing is real and then it's not actually real, but it still gives you that effect of, whoa, you know. So like the machete, you know, when it's gone into Len's head, you know, it really looks good.
Well, Howard Berger comments on that. He thought he would going to have to make a rubber head or something. I said, no, you just cut a groove out of the machete and do it in reverse. Ah, it is a magic trick, you know.
Any other questions? Oh, right at the back, Colin.
Dick Smith told us one, a quick one, I'll tell you, one of the funnies when we were at his house. He had taken hours for a taxi driver, taken hours and hours setting up the actor in the chair for being shot in the face. Hours doing little details like that. And he turned around and the actor's wife came in to say, honey, how long are you going to be?
Oh, honey, you have a
little hair on your face.
And she pulled the bullet.
You know, they were set up because it was a practical effect back
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
He had little buttons under wax, and he had the string that he would attach to make the hole. He would just sit there and pop the piece of wax out, and there was a hole.
Well, I did a ton of
It
those.
was so detailed
in
that
Dawn
his
of
wife
the Dead.
was standing this far away and just thought it was a stray hair. And
Well,
pulled
it
it
was
off.
actually a fish line. You know. What you do is you paint the blood. You have a sewing button that you have a string attached to the button, and then you cover that with mortician's wax. Okay, and to make the hole appear, you simply pull the button out of the wax. Okay,
It's
and
a perfect
in the
round
Dawn of the
hole.
Dead, we had blood going behind it, so the hole would appear and blood would flow out. It's very primitive. Today we use plastic appliances with air pressure to pop a button, you know, and then pump the blood right through the appliance to the hole. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, it's just for the panel. I've been hearing that George was very open to ideas and that. Was there any like where you got thinking we're going a bit too far and we're going to get censored? The border censors in America and England or whoever.
We never thought of that. But you didn't see a lot here that was in that movie. You didn't see the exploding head. You didn't in Night of the Living Dead. You didn't see Lenny Lee's getting the machete in his head in the British version. You know, from what I understand from people today. So there was a lot you didn't see, but that's your censors cut it. We never thought that's too much. We just went for it every time. You know.
I remember the director's cut coming on the TV, I don't know, about 15, 20 years ago, and I had never seen it. And there were scenes with Joe Pilato at the docks. And I'm like, well, hang on a minute, what versions is this? You know,
You're talking about Dawn of the
from
Dead.
Dawn of the Dead, sorry, yeah. There's so many different versions. But with Day of the Dead, obviously we talked a little bit yesterday about George's original vision, which was the Ben-Hur of zombie movies. It would have been incredible if he'd done it.
Yeah, it was
And the
very
amount of gags you'd have had to make up for that.
What?
If he'd have gone with that script, if they'd have given him the money.
Yeah, the script was like a phone book. It was like Raiders of the Lost Ark with zombies.
Have we got any other questions out there, guys?
Yeah, man.
Is there food?
Is there food?
Well, that's what.
I'm not shouting. Is there food? That was very funny, Alexander. It's very good. I think
Anybody else? His last chance. Here we are.
guys, you know, it's not often you get the chance to ask them. Remember, Taso and Howard flew out to the UK with less than 5 days. So I'm really impressed and really grateful that they came. So think of those questions, you know. Anybody there? Don't be shy.
I think he has a question.
Oh, Tony, apologies.
You were saying earlier, Howard, about wanting to do a follow-up with Bub. George never repeated his characters. in
I'm
movies,
sorry,
apart
I am
from-
repeating.
Apart from Blades. How did that happen? How did you come to be in Land of the Dead all those years after Dawn of the Dead?
Well, it was an evolution. I was originally going to do the effects in Land of the Dead. And then after the Universal said we can't hire Tom, he doesn't have enough collateral in case we want to sue him. So the effects job went to Greg Nicotero and K&B, and of course they had collateral. Then I was going to play the driver of the machine, the big the Death Motor, Dead Reckoning, yeah. And then the producer came to me and said, well, no, because you played the sheriff in the remake of Dawn of the Dead, you can't play the driver of that. So they just it was like they just gave me that little scene to do something with me, because I was supposed to do the effects. I was supposed to drive. I was supposed to be a character. So that's why I'm the only actor in a Romero Dead film who repeats in another George Romero Dead film. And it's funny because Greg did the makeup on me. Actually, Gino Crognelli did the makeup on me. Greg was the supervisor. And he gave me big buffy eye bags. And I said, well, why do I have big eye bags? He said, because you landed in a fountain. I said, I didn't stay there for a year, you know. But that's why I have those big eye bags, you know.
At least he was thinking about it. At least he thought about what happened to you.
It's an interesting question. But why other than that, it must have been something he thought about, why you didn't want to recur characters.
Well, that was going to be my question. I mean, did any of you who knew him, did any of you ever say to him, where's Fran, where's Peter, where's, you know, why aren't they repeating it, even in a cameo in a new movie?
Well, in my Night of the Living Dead, toward the end when the helicopter comes, people thought that was Fran and Ken up there.
Yeah.
Which could have been, you know.
I think with Dawn of the Dead, there's always been this massive following for that film. And Day of the Dead, I know you said yesterday it was George's favourite film, isn't it? But I think the following for Day of the Dead has grown. Gary Glass said it was like a fine red wine, it grows on people. And I do think there's an element of truth of it, because I've noticed panels getting bigger and bigger and bigger, as in the crowd to watch what's being said about Day of the Dead. I think new fans are coming through all the time because the special effects hold up so well. But why do you think the following is getting bigger for Day of the Dead?
I don't know, I read the review. The reviews were terrible for Day of the Dead. I mean, because they were comparing it to Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead was a spectacle, an epic, you know. And Day of the Dead was kind of claustrophobic in an underground mine, you know. But, you know, I don't know. Maybe people, you know, read those reviews or something before saying it.
I wonder if there's something about a film kind of being in sync with the spirit of the times. Dawn of the Dead was very, very clearly it was a satire on a mall culture at a period in time where malls were popping up around America like mushrooms. And, you know, people had opinions about that, even though they still shopped in them. Day of the Dead came out in the mid-'80s at a time when Ronald Reagan was massively popular. And it was all the hippies had turned into yuppies and were spending money and having babies. It was, by and large, a very, very optimistic time. And I mean, obviously everyone wasn't doing well, but the general tenor of the time was very optimistic, which was the opposite of Day of the Dead.
That's a very astute observation, because all of George's films, the reason they were the good ones, the reason they were good is because he always included something that reflected on the times.
Right.
You know, like you were just saying. There's a documentary called American Nightmare, and it's all about horror movies that had the subtext of what was going on in the world at the time. And George, it's mostly about George's movies. It's called American Nightmare.
I mean, I personally think it's a brilliant film. I think it is just so well. I think all the actors did a really great job. Joe Pilato just eats up the screen. Howard, I thought your impression of Bub was really, really good. I remember meeting somebody once saying, "Oh, I don't think Howard's that bothered about the performance of Bub," and I found you to be completely the opposite. You were very proud of Way.
Oh yeah, who said I wasn't proud of?
I don't know. Somebody with got an opinion. It's like ourselves. Everyone's got.
No, that was Seinfeld. No, I was kidding.
You should be very proud of the performance, Howard.
Well, thank you. I am. To complete that point about the growing popularity of Day of the Dead, I think that we are living in an era that is not nearly so optimistic as the mid-'80s were for a wide variety of reasons. And that might have something to do with the growing popularity of Day of the Dead, the kind of bleakness.
1985, isn't it? 1985.
Yeah.
Who wasn't born in 1985? But you've seen the film? Yeah, you've seen it. So, look, I think it's a fantastic movie. I think all three of you should be very, very proud of it. I think as a personal fan of this film, it is my favourite Romero film. I am so glad that it is the film it is today. That it, you know, if it had been the Ben-Hur of zombies, maybe it wouldn't have had the character it's got. The anger, the swearing. I mean, the swearing and the anger in that movie certainly came out, didn't it?
What the fuck are you asking?
And fuck you a lot.
Yeah, I know. It was. Any other final question? How are we doing for time, Colin? We've got 2 minutes. One last question, please.
Come on, a really juicy one. Maybe.
Here we go. It's going to be gory.
Is there food?
This monkey farm.
Obviously, they're completely different films in tone, but due to the fact, obviously, in 1985 and the split from Romero and Russo, was there any sense of rivalry at the time or since with Return of the Living Dead? Being around the same
Were
time.
they at the same time? Really?
The same year, anyway.
Because I was doing Creepshow when, right before Return of the Living Dead came out. I'm sorry, I don't have a chronological memory. I know I've done stuff, but I have no idea when. Okay. Greg Nicotero had to put my movies in order when I wrote the book Grand Illusions, because I really don't remember when.
I think Return of the Living Dead and Day of the Dead did come out pretty much at the same time, because I think Terry Alexander said his family or somebody was going to go and watch the film, and they went to see the wrong film, and they said, well, we didn't see you in it. So what did you see? Return of the Living Dead. So it was out roughly the same time, but totally different movies. Didn't take.
Well, Return of the Living Dead was going to be a serious movie, you know, but it got so. How can I say it? I don't want to talk about the writer, but which is partly why they turned it into a comedy. That's why they turned it into a comedy, because as a serious movie, it was pretty dismal. You know, it wasn't very good.
The director was Dan O'Bannon, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. Any other questions? That's it. Day of the Dead panel from Tom Savini, Taso, please give extra applause to the guys that came last minute on your behalf and our behalf. Thank you very, very much. We'll see you at you soon.
Coming to get you, Barbara.